Good evening and welcome to the third episode of the Marea and Friends concert series. We are so happy to be joined here today by saxophonist Richard Brasseale, who is also one of our very good friends. So here's a little bit about our performer tonight. Richard Brasseale is a freelance saxophonist in the Chicago area. He has played with numerous ensembles, including the Milwaukee Symphony, Madison Symphony, Fulcrum Point New Music Ensemble, Camerata Chicago, Civic Orchestra of Chicago, and others. He is currently the classical saxophone instructor at North Park University and a production manager for the Twickenham Fest, a chamber music festival in his hometown of Huntsville, Alabama. He received his master's and bachelor's from the DePaul School of Music, where he won both the Wind Symphony and Symphony Orchestra Concerto competitions. He has also been to the Brevard Music Festival, where he was a member of the Itch New Music Ensemble and performed with the symphonies there. He has studied with Jeremy Rothroff, Susan Cook, and Joe Luloff. In his free time, he habitually buys way too many plants for his city apartment. We are so excited to have Richard here tonight. And before we get started, if you feel so inclined, please head over to our website. I will post a link right here below. And head over to the ticket page and purchase your $5 optional virtual ticket. We have put a lot of time, energy, and hard work into these episodes, and it really means a lot to us and to the artists. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started with this Etude Extravaganza.
Oh my god, I love it. Hello. There's a Marea duo, but I didn't know if you know, but there's also a Richard Brasseale duo.
There's only one true Richard Brasseale.
No, there is. Sorry, I'm gonna go off my phone.
Well, maybe we'll just have two Richards today. We'll just have two Richards. We're honored to have two of you for this interview. Hey, everyone will know your name at all times. It's honestly perfect.
Perfect. I just exited out on my laptop and I'm on my phone now. So is this better?
This is better.
Yeah. This is
perfect.
Magnificent.
Perfect.
How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Amazing. I'm at my lake house in Alabama right now, living my best life.
The dream.
Oh, nice.
It really is.
And making your recordings for the concert series.
Oh my god, it has been such a blast to do so. Oh my god. I keep being like, oh man, maybe I should get this view with the lake in the background. Or I could go over here and get this view with the lake in the background.
Oh my gosh, that's
Wait,
so
the
fun.
second Richard left the meeting, I don't know where he went.
Oh no.
Where'd he go?
He's going to practice, probably.
Yeah. Work on some etudes. Which brings us to the theme of tonight's episode.
Yes, Etude Extravaganza.
Etude Extravaganza.
Yes.
Yeah, and so we're so excited to have Richard Brasseale here with us for our third episode of the Marea and Friends concert series.
Yeah.
And yeah, before we kind of dive into this interview, I just wanted to say a couple words about Richard. We we were all together at the Brevard Music Festival in 2016. And what a summer that was.
One of the best summers of my life, easily.
I really didn't even know y'all.
I mean,
Y'all
I feel like we were
BFFs.
BFFs. We still honestly still kind of are. Like, I mean,
Elaine's the kind of person who, like, if I could call you at any point in time and we could talk as if nothing has changed since the moment we met.
Seriously, that's like Yeah, I was just, I'm not going to try to make this a love fest, but I just wanted,
But like, kind of.
yeah, but kind of. No, but one of my favorite things about Richard, and I've been thinking about this over the week, is that Richard was one of the first people who really made me want to be more curious about music. The way that Richard would speak about music, the way that Richard just would thoughtfully approach everything was what really kind of lit a fire for me to want to like to know more and to have more knowledge and to grow. And I really like you were one of my first friends that really took it off. And I mean summer music festivals are so important, but and these friendships are what really make it all like make this whole I mean it's just like that's what makes music worth it is because you have
That
friends
is
like this. So I
that
just
is
wanted to
such
say
high
that.
praise.
Sweet.
I just yeah.
Eleni, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I mean,
Oh.
and I can say this too. I mean, I think your vigor towards the bassoon, your joy of the bassoon, and just your mentality about music also is just equally as inspiring to me. I mean, the way you approach music is just the most refreshing way possible and a field full of people who can easily be jaded, and your verve is just it gives me hope for musicians of our age and like future musicians, because you're my ideal collaborator, you're my ideal artist. Just you make people joyous around you, and to listen to the bassoon, it's just amazing. And you've matured so much, and it's just been so much fun to watch you grow as a musician. And from the moment I met you, you've been so special.
And
Feel
we're
your
that's
third
why
wheeling here.
no no, but that's why we're so happy to have you on the show today. The first question that we'll maybe talk about is how did you choose the saxophone, and also what are some misconceptions that people have about classical saxophone playing? And yeah, just talk.
You asked me this question because I feel like you knew that I was waiting for this question. um, well, I started the saxophone when I was about 12 years old. I had already taken a few years of voice lessons and piano lessons, and I loved that. But the majority of this reference point towards a wind instrument came from my mom, actually, because my middle school band program was a really prestigious, and so she wanted me to learn a wind instrument. So I took a musical aptitude test and I scored pretty well on it. And so the band director told me that I could pick any instrument I wanted. I actually picked the trumpet first, and my mom didn't want me to. And then I picked the trombone, and my mom said, "No, the band director's son plays trombone, and I don't want you to compete with him." And then I picked the saxophone. So I wouldn't call it love at first sight, but when I picked it up and when I played it, the saxophone and I were inseparable. It's one of those things where after you just kind of learn and grow with it, and every year it brings a new kind of curiosity to me. It's instruments have so much depth to them, and it's just it just sparks more curiosity, and especially with the saxophone, it just keeps growing and growing and growing, and I keep wanting to learn more and more about it. So as I went to school for saxophone, I think I got more into my field of classical saxophone, and this brings about the next question, which is what are some misconceptions that people see about the classical saxophone? Most of the time, I talk to people who maybe aren't in the classical music field about being a classical saxophonist. They say that's a thing.
Yeah.
They don't realize that really, actually, Adolf Sax, when he invented it in 1840, it was originally supposed to be a classical instrument. It definitely took off as a jazz instrument, and I think it's a stunning version of the saxophone, and I have such admiration for those people who do that. But there's also such a rich, unique history with the saxophone in the classical medium, and also the orchestral medium. Of course, some of the greats, Bolero, Ravel's arrangement of pictures at an exhibition. There's really stunning saxophone moments. But then, even nowadays we have stuff like Philip Glass and John Adams that really stick out to my head. And I think the saxophone fits into that in a really fun way. It's kind of always a symbol for modernity. So
Yeah.
it's really nice to see that cutting edge kind of classical field be matched with that. What about you guys? Eleni, why'd you pick the bassoon? And Amelia, why'd you pick the oboe?
Well, I picked the bassoon because the band director approached me as I was getting to the back of my clarinet section, and when everyone was kind of, dropping out of band in middle school, and it was kind of not deemed as the cool thing anymore, so I was kind of getting influenced by my peers. But then the band director came up to me and said, hey, the band director, Mr. Zinn, came up to me and said, hey, it takes a really special person to play the bassoon. And I was like, special? I'm there. Like, if I'm the only one and I'm special, I'm going to do it. And then,
oh my goodness, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, that conversation kind of changed my life. And I mean, then I started having good teachers right from the beginning, studying with Jackie Wilson and Benjamin Coelho, and it just kind of, and Stephanie Patterson, and it just kind of like took off from there. So just really good teaching.
Amelia?
I actually, this is like kind of weird. I there was no moment where I was like, oh, that oboe is beautiful. No, never. I never really, I actually was going to quit the oboe, but I initially I played the French horn in 6th grade, and our band director made us bring our instruments home every single day. We couldn't leave them in the band room, and it was so big, and I hated carrying that huge French horn case with me everywhere.
Of course.
And then I was like, ooh, nobody plays the oboe in band, and then I'm gonna have a tiny little case, and I'll get all the solos. And I was like, perfect. And then I started playing the oboe, and the next year I quit band altogether. So 8th grade, I quit band, and then in high school, I was doing marching band, and we had to do concert band, and then we were going around one day, and I was still debating on that day, if I was going to play the oboe in band or if I was just going to be in percussion, because I did percussion in marching band. And
I see.
And so he was going around the class saying all right, what do you play? What are you going to play? What are you going to play? And I was, and he called on me, and I was like, I guess I'll play the oboe. Isn't it ridiculous?
That's
Look for how
ridiculous.
far it's taken you so far, taken all of us so far.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, it's amazing though, because you guys, both of you started on different instruments, and both of you guys are phenomenal vocalists as well. So there are 3 of us who all started on different instruments than what we do now.
Yeah.
And it really gives you a unique perspective to your own instrument and how it fits into the rest of the orchestral world.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Also, shout out to all the music educators out there, because think all 3 of us had really influential educators that brought us to be where we are now.
Yeah,
so.
I would not be playing the oboe if it weren't for people pushing me to do that.
Oh, yeah, me either. I wouldn't be playing the oboe either.
Yeah.
When musicians think about etudes, they tend to remember spending hours and hours locked away in a practice room, shedding the same passage over and over and over again until they get it right. But I think they tend to overlook the lyricism and phrasing and performance practice that goes along with etudes. That being said, I wanted to start this performance with the quintessential technical etude. So this is a flute etude by Antoine Berbeguer that saxophonist love to steal. It's the first one of the series, and it's charming, and it's fast, and it's bouncy, and it's technical. So I really hope you enjoy. It's just a minute long.
All right, now something a little bit different, although we were having so much fun with our etude extravaganza. So tonight we are very delighted to be premiering a new piece for the Marea Duo written by my undergrad professor and mentor, Mark Vallon, who is the bassoon professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I've always wanted to play a piece that was written for me or for the duo. And he basically talked to me when we were on the phone and he said, you know, why don't you have a piece written about your name? Because the word Marea.
Yeah, so Marea means tide in Spanish. And when this whole pandemic was initially starting, we would go to the beach and we found a lot of peace and solace and inspiration for starting this duo by watching the tides. We would go at low tide and search for seashells and sea glass. So just a lot of positive memories during this difficult time. And that's kind of where the name Marea comes from.
And, well, we are going to have a short introduction video from Marc Vallon himself, but the words flux and jouissance kind of translate to the high and low, or the ebb and flow of the tides. And we are actually so lucky to be playing this piece on the composer Marc Vallon's birthday. And just before we sing you a little song, I just would like to say thank you so much for being such an influence in my life and for making music about being a whole artist, and for always making me so much more curious about music.
Yeah, so, all right. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday!
Greetings. My name is Marc Vallon. I teach bassoon at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and that's my connection with Eleni. She completed a degree with us and finished 2 years ago. We kept in touch. We have been friends since then. And also I'm a kind of a composer, arranger. I've been composing since I was a kid. I picked up the bassoon when I was 12, and composing and playing the bassoon was for me two things that completely go together. Anyway, so I learned the trade a little later than that, and when Eleni asked me to write a piece for Marea, I said, yeah, I would. Yeah, why not? I would think about it. And I think she expected me to us to talk about it, and to, she would tell me what she wanted, what she had in mind. But at the very beginning of the semester, I knew that I was going to be engulfed in a lot of stuff and not really feeling my head free and my mind free to do any composing. So I went into it in a couple of days. I sent her this piece called flux and jouissance. So these are two French words that technically describe the low and high tides. So it's a very simple movement in nature. I mean, complicated, but the general concept is simple. And my piece is simple also. It just followed that flux and jouissance. Marea, the tide. I thought that was an obvious connection with their duet. There's a little singing. I'm sure that Eleni and Amelia wanted a little more singing in the piece. I didn't include a lot of singing. I heard them sing there. There's just amazing. This, by the way, this duet is just an unique combination of talents. So the piece is very simple. It's a short piece. It's not easy, I'm sure, but these two girls are so talented. So there's no reason to make it too easy. I hope it's a nice contribution to their repertoire, and I'm excited to hear it. I heard it on the computer, which is not always a very rewarding thing. So I'm excited to hear the piece live, played by these two really amazing young performers. Thank you.
Thank you so much for writing this piece for the Marea duo and continuing to support me and us in this musical journey that we're going on. I'm so grateful for everything that you have helped me with on my musical journey.
And it's been wonderful to get to know you, and I hope that our paths cross again in the future.
Yes.
And I'm sure they will.
We have had so much fun working on this piece, and it's made us feel like we are in the ocean.
Yeah.
If you could tell us a little bit about your current career path and what you're doing right now. Yeah.
I would love nothing more than to tell you this. Aside from, I guess if this wasn't a completely unprecedented time, what I would normally be doing is about a third of my time is spent freelancing. I do a lot of it with the Milwaukee Symphony, the Madison Symphony. I do some freelancing also with the Civic Orchestra of Chicago, and I've done some other orchestras around the area as well. That is, of course, my absolute delight to do that as a classical saxophonist. It brings me so much joy and versatility, and every day it's a new adventure. And the other third of my life, or one of the other thirds of my life, is spent teaching. I teach at North Park University in North Park in Chicago. I have a studio there, and I teach a quartet. And then I also teach at Chicago Academy of the Arts, which is an arts high school. I really like teaching students of all ages because I feel like as long as a student is inspired and is curious, it just makes the lesson fly by. Even if they're 5 years old and they ask fun questions, it just time flies out the window, and it's so much fun. And you just kind of, again, it's like that kind of, it reinvigorates that spark in you. And then the last third of my career is kind of in administrative work. I work at Van Doren, which is a saxophone company. They also make reeds and stuff like that. And then I also am the production manager of Twickenham Fest, which is a small chamber music festival in my hometown of Huntsville, Alabama. I think that administrative work, teaching, and performing, I find that they all fit into my career path, and they all feed off of each other and build off of each other, and in a way that's actually very how do you say, like, mutually beneficial. I feel like a symbiotic relationship. They all kind of work very well together as a unit, and oftentimes if I'm doing well at one, then another one will, I'll recognize someone from the music business side of things, or someone will recognize me for my teaching, and so it kind of all of those things really make up my my current being in Chicago. And it's been really great. It's kind of the ideal thing for a saxophonist, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And how do you balance your time? And in the beginning, I feel like it would be a lot of saying yes to everything that kind of comes by. And those feelings when you're saying yes to things in the beginning, it sometimes might be overwhelming. Like, how do you kind of balance the schedule of all three?
I feel like I knew I was kind of making it as a musician when I had to say no to something.
Yeah.
Like
point.
Getting the first gig was just like, of course, like the most amazing experience. But then like when I was actually busy enough to actually say I can't do this, that was when it kind of hit me that I was starting to fill out my schedule.
Yeah.
Of course, now, that being said, now because my schedule is free, but but that was a moment where I was like, oh wow, like I have a few months ahead planned out. Also, when you have so many feet and so many eggs in so many baskets, you really have to start prioritizing your time.
Yeah.
And get the music as early as possible. It really is like you have to be so organized to make sure that you can play all of the music, all the right notes, have the right instruments at the rehearsal, because sometimes sometimes if you're playing a pops concert, you'll be playing soprano, tenor, and alto on different songs. And so really the key is organization. to any freelance musician or just any musician in general. Just being able to plan out things as far out in advance as possible really sinks those in. And I think at first it was really intimidating because I think I didn't feel as rooted, or like I felt like, you know, if you make one mistake, you're like out. But then really the key is to be, you know, as consistent as possible and as dependable as possible.
Yeah.
So, you know, now, you know, showing up early, you know, always having a pencil.
Yeah.
And,
But
you know.
those are pieces of advice that I feel like not many people tell you, like how to be a good freelance musician. So I feel like that's really important for everyone who's tuning in right now to hear.
Of course. Yeah, if you're tuning it, yeah, my biggest advice for a freelance musician is just be organized and, you know, respond to your emails as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because there are lots of people who can play the part, but there's not a lot of people who can, you know, drive 3 hours and get there an hour early, have the right dress, and there, you know,
Absolutely.
if you get organized about those things, then your life becomes a lot easier.
Definitely.
I was gonna say I just put so many miles on my car this past year. I was just thinking about how much driving, and also, yeah, if you want to be a good freelance musician, make sure you have some good music to listen to in the car.
That's very
Since you're
important.
driving a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You listen to this.
Okay.
This next etude is by Astor Piazzolla, wonderful Argentinian composer and excellent bandoneon player. I really love these tango etudes because they're performance studies on a dance, and so it's really fun to perform, and it's very fun to listen to, and it really makes you want to tap your foot. Tangos have this really emotional quality to them, and they capture so many different kinds of emotions in one dance. So it's really a fun challenge to be able to portray all of those things. So I really hope that you enjoy this Tango Etude number 3 by Astor Piazzolla.
Okay, so yeah, so since this theme is etude extravaganza, um,
Yes, my favorite.
yeah, and you were talking a little bit about teaching and things like that. So, can you tell us a little bit of like the importance of etudes, like when you're like assigning them to students, and what are your thoughts on etudes, I guess?
This is another one of those things where I feel like this is very musician to musician. Like, what
I
do
know.
etudes mean to you? I don't think anyone who's not a musician would ever ask that question.
I know.
But
Actually, I feel like once after your answer, I think I can broaden it out to
To life.
non-musicians that are tuning in. So I've thought
I
about
think
this.
so too.
Yeah.
I'm ready. So for me, I think a lot about what I share with an audience and how I curate that. And really what that is the tip of the iceberg of what a musician really hears themselves do. Because maybe even the tip of the tip. Because you spend hours performing for yourself in a solitary room, maybe for your friends, before you even really think about performing in front of an audience. And I think etudes are something that we all spend a lot of time working towards. And at its bare minimum, an etude is a study, right? So we're learning how to perform, or we're learning a technique, or we're learning something. Um, but an audience never really gets to hear what those steps are in the practice room very frequently. They only really hear the end result. So I always think it would be kind of interesting to have, some sort of etude performance where we have, this is what we hear when we're in the practice room. This is what we
Yeah.
do on our day-to-day life. And so with my students, you know, they only really get to perform at certain points in time. If they're doing their own performances, or in school, it's usually for their jury. So there's 10 weeks, if you're a performance major, where you're not performing, you're practicing in front of a teacher. So an etude gives a student a chance to create a fully polished piece week by week by week, and you get to perform it. And it gives you, the opportunity to work on technique, of course, and then also just work on your performance aspects too. Where will you breathe? How will you make this musical? How can you communicate something to an audience given, a 2-minute long piece or a 45-second long piece? So etudes are really beneficial in that regard, because they kind of teach, and they also teach you this like daily routine like aspect of performing too. It's something that you're always constantly doing. You're always looking forward to do. So that's what etudes mean to me. And
Yeah.
that's why I think it's such a fun and interesting topic too, because people usually think of etudes as like technique studies. It's like, I'm working on my technique, so I'm going to practice etudes. But I mean, at its bare roots, yes, you need to be good technically at the instrument. But I feel like there's so many other aspects of etudes that people might overlook. Is it a lyrical etude? Is it a technical etude? Is it a dance etude? Is it an etude in a style? Is it a jazz etude? Is it in a style that you can study? So those are all really fun things. And it's like it's like creating a whole recital that you get ready in 1 week and perform. It's performance practice, if you will. So
And
that.
oh, sorry, you keep going.
I was gonna say that I was just. I was actually about to end and saying that's what etudes mean to me.
I'm sorry, I was just getting too excited.
I know that we've talked about etudes. All three of us have talked about our love for etudes. So I would love to hear your thoughts on etudes just as much.
Well, I mean, for like non-musicians tuning in, I feel like an etude is a time to study yourself. I feel like an etude can like also correlate to any task that a non-musician would do in an opportunity to study yourself and how you would react to certain things in your life. I think that I've personally haven't had very much experience studying etudes, but I'm just kind of getting into it, and I think it just like has really given me an opportunity to look inward and unfocus. Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful thing with etudes,
Yeah.
right? I, what about you,
I've
Amelia? Do you
never,
have any thoughts on?
I have truly never thought this deep about etudes before. I
Oh,
mean, if I'm just being honest. But
well,
like,
and the thing is, like, they're also really annoying, right? Because, like, they really test your limits too.
yeah.
So, like, I'm sure, like, for me at least, I have so many etudes where in a book I'll be like, I finished those in a week, that one in a week, that one in a week, and then like one I'll spend like 7 weeks on because like
Yeah.
it just like it's like my Achilles heel of playing. And I feel like everyone has like a few of those etudes that like you can remember being in a practice room at 2 a.m, banging your head against a door because you
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, all through undergrad, pretty much all I did was etudes. Like, that's like pretty much all yeah. And then,
Wow.
well, I mean, we have this whole Barrett book, and I would do that like every week. And then we went to Fairling. But like, a lot of the oboists were doing this like 40 days of Barrett when quarantine just started. And I did it, I didn't do it all 40 days, but I did it for like a couple of weeks. And it was just like going back to playing these etudes that I played when I was like just getting serious about playing the oboe. It's like I had, and seeing my markings from all those years ago. It's just like so interesting to think about the development from when I was initially learning them, and then now what I can like pull out of the same melody. And it sort of like makes you feel something playing these dorky little tunes that you play. It's just like, yeah, it's really cool. It's kind of magical. These little
Yeah.
etudes are
They
magical.
really are.
But I
And
feel
it's like
like
a
we're all,
timepiece.
but I feel like we're all trying to like peel back layers of
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
self. I mean, like going back to the self. It's like you're trying to peel back layers and like keep working at your craft, whatever it may be, to just kind of be more connected.
I remember there was a pianist who once told me that like whatever we experience in life can't be separate from what we perform on the stage.
Mm.
And that, whatever you think about or any other art form like fits in so well into that, just because it's kind of so reflective of what you do. But I feel like etudes are kind of similar. Like I can also attach a lot of experiences I was going to certain etudes. And also etudes can bring about certain experiences for me. So they kind of go hand in hand. But like, if like etudes are they're more daily weekly things than they are like pieces or larger works, which are like more, you can spend, a year of your life learning two pieces and 48 etudes.
Yeah.
So for me, they're all like diary entries or something like that. And
Yeah.
That's a
then,
good way of thinking about it.
and it's like, if you look at it back, it's like you're seeing, or like you're phrasing, it's like a way you were feeling. And then you can look back and say like, oh, I wouldn't describe it that way. I would describe it this way. And then you can, you'll rephrase or you'll go back to something. So
Mhm.
they're really interesting. I'm glad that you brought up like etude extravaganza too as a topic, because I think of, you just think about how many different ways you deal with etudes, and I don't want to say we take them for granted, but especially as a teacher, like as a student, I hated etudes and I hated scales, and all I wanted to do was repertoire or like excerpts. And then as a teacher, I hear my students and I'm like, all of your problems can be fixed if you just did scales and etudes.
I am so excited to share with you the work of Christian Lauba. Lauba is a Tunisian-born composer who resides in France now, and he really is a champion of the contemporary saxophone repertoire. He originally made 9 contemporary etudes for the saxophone, which won the SACEM award, composition award, and each of them highlight a different extended technique for the saxophone. The first one, which I will be playing, is entitled Balafon, which is a traditional African mallet instrument. kind of similar to a xylophone or a marimba, probably closer to the sound of a marimba. In this etude, he challenges the saxophonist to circular breathe, meaning breathe through the nose while you play out of the mouth. Perform multiphonics, so you're playing more than one note at the same time, and to slap tongue towards the end, which it's hard to explain, but you'll definitely hear it. But it's a percussive noise that kind of sounds like you're striking it against a drum a little bit. All of that while maintaining this sense of style and groove from this traditional African instrument. So now, not only are we incorporating these extended techniques, the normal technique of the instrument, and now we have this performance practice of trying to look up this kind of traditional music. So it really creates a stunning effect that I think hopefully you will find as tranquil and as interesting as I do. So I really, really hope you enjoy Balafon by Christian Lauba.
One of the things that you were mentioning earlier in the interview, you mentioned that you really think it's important to connect with an audience and that you really like curated programming, and you really look for a common thread through your works when you give a recital or even when you're looking at music, because I know how thoughtful you are. You look at the historical context. You look at what the composer was eating that day. You're so thoughtful. So can you just give advice to musicians and just people about how to be really thoughtful in the process of whatever you're doing, in even if it's learning an etude and a piece? And yeah.
Sure. So my first piece of advice, and I think the biggest one, is to consider your audience. Who's your ideal audience? If you're performing, an etude for your teacher, you're going to perform it in a certain way, in a way that your teacher wants you to play. If you're performing, a concerto in front of a symphony orchestra, and the audience knows that music very well, you might perform in a certain way. Versus if you were to play it with your family and in front of a piano. So I consider a lot of those things when I'm programming a lot of my music, because people, as a classical saxophonist, a lot of my audience is either classical saxophonist or they're people who know very little about the saxophone at all.
Yeah.
So I try and not necessarily spoon feed an audience, but I do try to give them as much context as possible for what's happening. I find for me personally, I play a lot of contemporary music, and I find that a lot of people might be turned off by it because they're not shown how to listen the correct way. And so that, for me, I believe that job falls on myself to teach the audience how can they listen to this in the way that makes them appreciate it the way I can show them. And so as a performer, you're trying to magnify what the composer wants, but you also have to make sure that that's getting to the audience and not just what you want.
Yeah.
And so I always consider the audience to be kind of the most important part of that, and the composer, and I'm just kind of the lens through which the composer is trying to reach the audience, if that helps. And then with through lines and stuff like that, I always try and consider to teach the audience something in a way that they don't realize they're being taught.
Yeah.
Because if it's too challenging for them, or if they're not listening to it in the right way, then it'll go on deaf ears, so to speak. So you have to, give them the information if they want it. I like to overload information in program notes, personally, or talk to them. Because what we're really trying to do is make a connection, and so the more we can do that, the more I think fulfilling the musical experience is for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I think that's a little bit about what I do to curate. But of course, I always try and diversify my composers. I am always looking for new pieces and new ideas. Yeah. I always think about what the saxophone means to people and how I can express that or challenge that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think and the other thing about it is just sometimes with recitals, like you get a seed that's planted by like one piece, and then you're like, I can either form something all about this or, something different. I have a friend who really likes to put pieces that are really opposite to each other side by side so that they seem like they're really different. And then sometimes I'll do, a recital that's all, like I did one that was all distance and loneliness themed, and then I had like people from all over the world and their ideas of distance and loneliness.
I think I remember when you were preparing that recital.
That one was hard. There was a lot of notes in that one. But yeah, I just think about, in that one, what I was trying to teach was, how are different composers from all over the world trying to to exemplify the same emotion, and you're kind of teaching an audience that way. I did a recital that was like all jazz influenced classical music, and it kind of, it was, each piece kind of blended a different aspect of jazz into classical music. I really liked that. I did one recital that was just, I guess, earlier this year, right before the pandemic happened. That was, it was called Immigrants and Allies, and it had Villa-Lobos and Miod, because they're two friends, and both of them created pieces for the saxophone, and Villa-Lobos wrote a French-inspired Brazilian concerto, and Miod wrote a Brazilian-inspired French concerto. So, Scaramouche, if you know. Yeah, it's great. And they were friends, and they met multiple times and talked about it. And then the second half of the program is Immigrants. It was Paul Hindemith wrote a great duo for saxophone, and Bernard Haydn, a student of his. Both of them lived in Germany and then ended up immigrating to America. And so you could kind of see like the through line of that. And it's just kind of like how us from around the world, how the saxophone kind of ties into this idea of universality, because it's used in so many different cultures. So
Yeah.
that was kind of my through line for that. So those are examples of what you can teach in a recital. But also, I was thinking about this too. Also, you're allowed to just have fun with a recital too. And if your idea is to show the audience that what you're doing, what you love, they're going to appreciate that just as much too, and they can get just as much out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of well, I was just thinking when you were talking about like these new ways to educate an audience, that it's like breaking down. I mean, people are doing this more and more often, but like breaking down the traditional like recital, like I will speak about this piece and then I will play it and then you will clap at the end of all the movements. Like, I mean, I've been in so many like like in my undergrad, our the band director, she was super into like encouraging people to clap between movements and like talking and like, yeah, just all this new stuff. And I think it draws audiences in a lot more. Yeah.
And I
it's
mean,
really interesting.
Also you were talking about earlier about how, you're preparing for all the different settings that you will be in. Maybe, you'll be playing in an orchestra, maybe you'll be playing in front of the orchestra, maybe this is an intimate recital, maybe they know nothing about music, maybe they're experts. But I think that, like, what I've been thinking a lot about in the pandemic and with these virtual experiences is we always want to be like playing our best, but we want it to feel like we're in the living room with really close friends.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's throw a thumbs up for that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I could do this on my. Yeah. Yes, I love it.
But I mean, and that's like what we're all desperately craving that right now, is we want to be with close friends in a living room, just living our life and sharing what we love. And so I feel like that's like what we're trying to do in this series, and what we're trying to do just like with any virtual collaboration right now.
It really is about that connection.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And so, if you can do it by saying like, let's understand each other, or let's understand this together. If you put the audience on your side and you learn that you're all listening to this together, it really creates the community that I think music is really meant to do.
That was beautifully put.
Yeah.
Getting deep about etudes 2020. Oh goodness. And can I just say, I'm just so obsessed with you guys. And what you guys are doing. I think
Whoa,
like
our mic just really clipped when you laughed. The mic, when you laughed, it was like blinking red.
It's like, stop, get me out of here.
I think you're connecting with so many people. I was just so flattered that you asked me, and I think that you guys are just two absolutely world-class musicians doing absolutely world-class things and bringing art to the coolest places in the coolest ways.
We love you.
That's so sweet.
You guys deserve it. Musicians supporting musicians.
Yes, that's what this is about.
This is what this is about.
When the Marea duo reached out to me to perform with them, I was so happy to oblige, but it was a little difficult to find a piece for our specific mixed ensemble. The saxophone is such a new instrument in the classical repertoire that it usually doesn't play with other instruments. The traditional chamber group for saxophones is the saxophone quartet, with a soprano, alto, and tenor sax and baritone saxophone. So it seemed like a fun challenge to arrange something for this group. Knowing that the talk that we were talking about is on etudes, and that oboe players and saxophonists both play the Fairling Etude book, I thought it would be a great opportunity to arrange a Fairling Etude for the three of us. I decided to put it in a romantic style because the Fairling Etudes are originally romantic, and I find this one to be particularly lyrical and beautiful, and I think that it really does fit quite well for the three of us. So I'm totally happy with the way that Eleni and Amelia play so musically and so beautifully. I'm just absolutely obsessed with the Marea duo, and I really hope that you enjoy this arrangement of Fairling Etude number 15.
Do you have any embarrassing or funny stories from the Brevard Music Festival in 2016 that you would like to share?
Oh no, I have so many. Is there one in particular you want me to talk about? I can think of 3 off the top of my head right now.
Okay, what? This may
I'll
not
go
be
with
included, but just do it. Just do it. Off
where's the Who Me?
Yeah.
But there's the night of the movies concert when I was playing, what was it? Oh gosh, what was it? This is so long ago.
Lord of the Rings.
No, it wasn't Lord. It was the movie one,
Hobbit.
Sunset Boulevard. It was Sunset Boulevard. Um, and I had like a large extended solo, and so at the end of the piece, the conductor pointed to me to bow, and as our friend Gabe really likes to mention, I looked around as if I hadn't just played a very extended solo. And I went, "Who, me?" As if, like, I didn't know that I was gonna have like a bow. That was embarrassing, but only after the fact because I guess I was being humble at the time and really was not. And then, of course, there was a time the saxophones were doing a run out concert at, I can't remember the name, but there was like an art installation art gallery. And I was playing this Stockhausen duet with Dylan Ward. And we were both playing soprano parts. And I remember, like, from the very first note, like, it was not the right note. And I was like, what just happened? And I was like, I know I'm pressing the right buttons. I've played the saxophone for 10 years. I'm pretty sure this is the right button. And then, like, the next one came out and it was not the right thing. And then the next one came out, it was like a multiphonic, and I was like, that's not right. And I was like, what is going on? And we got through this whole 3-minute piece, me not, like, making just squeak sounds, growl sounds, like everything except for what's supposed to be on the page. And I, like, look in my instrument, and there's like a donut mute. There's a kind of mute that you can put into
Oh, I
the
thought you
bell
were
of
gonna
your
say a
instrument.
donut, like a.
That would have been a much better story. No, but there's a mute that you can put into the bell of your instrument to make some of the notes come be more in tune. And I'd forgotten to take it out before I put it on my stand. So I like put the instrument on my stand and it jammed up the mute into my instrument. So like 40% of the notes worked, and the other 60% did
Oh
not.
my god.
It was luckily it was a challenging piece for the audience anyways, so I don't think anyone really noticed.
Donut did
But
that to you.
I know the donuts betrayed me.
Yeah.
So that was very embarrassing. I have another embarrassing moment too that's not from Brevard, if you'd like to hear that.
Oh yeah, let's
go
hear
for
it.
This is my nosebleed story, if I've ever told you this, Eleni.
Oh, I think you might have, but you keep
know.
going.
This is one of the very first gigs I ever did. I was 19 years old, I think. I was 20 years old. And I got hired to play with the Chicago Camerata Chicago. They were doing a Sylvia McNair concert, which is a phenomenal soprano. And it was all Gershwin. So I was playing Rhapsody in Blue, and I was playing An American in Paris, I believe. And so we did 4 concerts, all in different places. We got to the last concert, which was at Wheaton College, which is really they have a beautiful hall. And there was Rhapsody in Blue, American in Paris. Then she sang Summertime without saxophone, and then she did I Got Rhythm without saxophone. So we just finished American in Paris, and they just started playing the part to Summertime. You know, like the bum, bing, bing,
Yeah.
right before she, and I like wipe my nose, and I am bleeding profusely out of my nose. It was the last concert. I was the youngest person on stage by easily 15 years, and I was like one of the very first gigs I had freelanced on, and I was just like did not know what to do, and I was like looking around, just hoping that like someone who wasn't playing could see me and the panic in my eyes. And the saxophonist beside me, who she teaches at USC Thornton in California now,
Yeah.
she took off her nice black blazer because neither of us had like a napkin or like anything that we could use, and she let me use that.
Oh.
And then a horn player right behind me like looked at me, and she like said kind of loudly, "That boy is bleeding out of his nose." To like the whole horns, and all of them were looking at me, and like these are members of the Chicago Symphony were playing in it. There was like some lyric horn players, and then like a clarinet player like took her like a napkin, a neckerchief out of her like thing and passed it down the entire woodwind section to me. So now at this point, all of the winds knew what was happening. And so after summertime happened, we had one more song left. It was I Got Rhythm. And so I was like, I should leave the stage. I've made a mess. And yeah, so I had a Barry and an alto with me. I picked up both of them. And on the way out, I hit the chime. Like, not so bad. And so I and then like the stage managers opened the door for me and they looked so mad and they're like, what is happening? And then they saw my face, like this like poor 20 something, just like the verge of tears with like a bloodstained face, and they were like, oh.
Cheeks hurt.
So I put my instruments away and I went home and I just waited for my check in the mail.
Oh man.
So that's probably my most embarrassing story.
Oh my gosh. That is like, I can't even imagine.
I mean, it is like kind of one of those like nightmare situations that you don't ever think to prepare for. But now I always bring a Kleenex with me when I go on stage.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah. Oh, I try. I keep it in my case. But
yeah.
So hopefully you guys never have something that embarrassing.
I've never had a nosebleed, but I have had that squeaky thing that you were talking about first. Totally been there.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, what is happening?
There was a composer, Max Vinetz at Rivard, and he was like, "What can you do on the tenor?" Like, what? And like, I had a rod that was out of place, and no notes came out. I was trying to demonstrate a fairly easy, like, major scale for him, and no notes were happening. And I was like, "I promise you, I know how to play this instrument. I did not get into this festival by mistake. I promise you."
Oh gosh. Well, man, this has been
great.
Little interview.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for interviewing me. I feel so flattered that you asked.
So thank you so much for tuning in this week. It's been so much fun talking with Richard and performing these pieces for you all. We hope that you will tune in next week for a performance with Marley Simpson. She is a violist with the New World Symphony. It's going to be a wonderful episode that you do not want to miss.
Yes, and we cannot wait to keep bringing you these virtual concert experiences every Saturday at 7 p.m. It has been a joy to connect with all of these artists, and we are really looking forward to week 4.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. See you next week.